Hey guys, what would it be like if you could last 10 times longer when you're having sex?
We are going to teach you how to gain massive confidence as a lover, all without performance anxiety, gimmicks, or prescription.
This course is perfect for you if you've ever been mortified by a sexual encounter that ended way too early.
Or if you've ever avoided intimacy out of fear that you won't last as long as your lover desires. Or maybe you long to give your partner multiple orgasms but can't last long enough to make that a reality.
Well, good news, we've got your back, and it's in our course, Last 10 Times Longer. Go to sexreimagined.com/last dash the number 10 X dash longer.
And for all of our favorite listeners out there, we are giving you a discount, 20% off, y'all. Just put in podcast 20, all caps, podcast 20 to get your 20% off of this phenomenal course that you're going to want to review more than once.
We cannot wait to see you inside this course. Plus, don't forget, we always got tons of bonuses. See you there. Welcome to the Sex Reimagined podcast. I'm Leah Piper, your Tantra expert.
And I'm Dr. Willa Brown, your Taoist expert. Here today, we have an amazing podcast for you because we interviewed 3 people plus us, 5 total. It was actually, we did a great job, I'm going to say. So we had on our show, Dan Powers, who we've had before. He is incredible, a surrogate partner therapist. Really, really cool. He's been practicing as a sex coach for almost 20 years. He's got a varied background in a number of different modalities: Tantra, surrogate partner therapy, somatic sex education, sexological bodywork, erotic blueprint, and so much more. So he's a wealth of wisdom. And we've had him, what was it? Episode 35.
Episode 35. Check him out.
Check him out. And then we had his client on with us, one of his surrogate partner clients, Faythe, who was a 70-year-old virgin before she started working with Dan. And she just woke up one day and asked herself, what the hell? How did I become a 70-year-old virgin? She was raised in a conservative religious family, and she was just ready to open up her life to explore her sexuality. So she found Dan. And the third person that we had on our call was their therapist, the one and only Deb Azorski, who has a master's in counseling, has studied with wise and knowledgeable elders in the field of sex therapy. It was so cool to talk with all 3 of them about their process, their journey, and you're going to love this episode. Very dynamic, fascinating stuff.
It's just great to see the triadic model of surrogate sex therapy at play by being able to sit down with the therapist, with the surrogate, and with the client themselves. Deb has been doing this work since 2008. As the psychotherapeutic arm of the triadic model. And it was wonderful to sort of see how the process unfolds. All the things that you can imagine, the anxiety for the client, and then the safety that the surrogate provides, and then the processing that the therapist provides in order to make sure that everything is being paced in a way that makes sense for all 3 people. The therapist is there to protect both the surrogate and the client. And I just say, bravo. So in the spirit of Faythe, who really sums up this episode with, pleasure is our birthright, it is time for you to tune in, turn on, and fall in love with Dan, Deb, and Faythe, y'all. Enjoy.
Enjoy.
Welcome to the Sex Reimagined podcast, where sex is shame-free and pleasure-forward. Let's get into the show.
Welcome, Dan, Deb, and Faythe. It's so great to have you on the show.
Oh, I'm so excited for this interview, y'all. This is going to be super powerful. So we've interviewed Dan Powers before. We've got one of his clients and her therapist. And Dan and Deb have worked together with they've worked together over the years with other clients as well. And Faythe is our star client. So we're so excited to have you, Faythe. It's really a pleasure. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah. So I am a surrogate partner, and which we've talked about this before in a previous podcast. So if anybody wants to go back and look at all that, get all the detail.
Episode 35.
Do it. Listen, it's amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, the way, as a refresher, it works is it works in a triadic model. So you've got the client, a therapist, and the surrogate. we are a surrogate partner. So we are going in as a partner to our client and going through all of imaginations that we go through with a therapist, which is what Deb's role is in all of this.
Yeah. And so I guess like finding out the genesis story for you, Faythe, of how you found Dan and what propelled you to reach out to him. What was it that you were really investigating within your own sexuality?
Besides my ravishing good looks.
Yeah. But I didn't
And
know
charming
that yet.
personality.
I didn't know that yet.
So this could be a whole podcast and more in itself. But as I said in my introduction to you, if I were to write a book, the first line would be, I was a 70-year-old virgin. How the hell did that happen?
Mm.
So
Yeah.
about 2.5 years ago, actually, this energy started coming up from my unconscious. Little did I know, it wasn't going to go away. It was, maybe I watched a rom-com or something, I don't know. But it went on for days and weeks and months. And I decided it's time to look at this part of my life. Was raised very conservative, church, family, society. And so I just started reading and looking and listening and whatever. And I came across an article on I don't remember what it was, but it was about sexuality. And there was a link in there to surrogate partner therapy. And I'd never heard of that. What the hell is this? So I clicked on the link. I started reading it. I thought, who would ever do that? Who would ever do that?
Mm-hmm.
Little did I know that 6 months later, I would be doing that. So, and I just want to say from the beginning that I look at this whole journey that I've been on through the paradigm of the hero journey. There's the call to adventure, there's the journey, and there's the return. And this call to adventure came to look at my sexual life. And I decided to answer that call. And then I was looking actually for a Tantra massage therapist. And I was looking, asking. And finally, somebody gave me Dan's name. And I looked up his website and I thought, well, I don't think he's a massage therapist, but there's some other things here. And so we had our first Zoom call 2 years ago this month. I got off of that call and said, hell no, I'm not doing this. But again, the energy would not leave me.
Well, I gotta
pulled
stop
me.
you, Faythe. I'm curious, like, what was the hell no? Was it fear? Was it like overwhelm? What was it that felt resistant?
Well, and I'll just talk about my hesitations. And I just would say that some of you may have seen the movie Good Luck to You, Leo Grand, with Emma Thompson 1.5 years ago. And for those of you who haven't, Emma Thompson plays a retired religious education teacher, oh my, whose husband died about 3 years ago and never had a good sexual, intimate relationship with him and decided to go find some pleasure. So that movie came out just a month after Dan and I started working together.
Wow.
And I thought, somebody's been in my head and made a movie of all my hesitations. So my hesitations were, first of all, where is this going to lead me? What's going to happen here? And so Dan and I had a lot of conversations before we even got together, 3, 4, 5 months later, I don't know. A big question was, am I too old for this? Am I enough? Will I be enough? Is my body going to respond? I never had a sexual experience. And I decided that, first of all, I'm going to have sex before I die. And second of all, I want my first experience to be with someone who knows what they're doing. Because I think a lot of people, their first experience was not so great.
That's true.
So my hesitations were around, am I enough? Will I be disappointed in my body? What if it doesn't respond? What if my family and friends find out? Oh my God. And after this podcast, they just might. I don't know.
Right.
Why am I doing this at my age? Why? This is way too old to be doing this. It's too much money. It's too much time commitment. And when it's over, I don't want to be sad. I don't want to hurt. Because this is not what Emma Thompson did in the movie. This is a longer process and there's a lot of commitment to it on both sides. And so I thought, and we talked about, Dan and I talked about that in the process, you may fall in love. And I don't want to hurt when it's over. That was a long answer to your question.
Well, I think,
Great
all of those
answers.
are really important pieces of why you were resistant at first. Okay, so go on with the journey. So then what?
So then I decided to, well, in the meantime, between talking to Dan the first time and actually deciding to do it, he had suggested maybe a female sexological body worker. And I did see her twice just to begin the sensate touch, getting in touch with my body. And then I realized I really need to be working as a heterosexual woman. I need to be working with the male energy. And so that's when I decided to do it. And I thought, okay, well, let's just do, a few weeks of this. Yeah. It's now been a year and a half. So there you go.
Right.
Well, that's one of the things I love about this model, Dan, that you've spoken about is you do it until it's complete. Like you could there's no time limit on it. And so,
well, isn't there? I actually thought there was a time limit that you only engage in the process for a certain amount of time. No. Okay.
No. So the movie The Sessions came out, and because it's Hollywood, they said it was a max of 6 sessions. And that's really completely unrealistic when you're working with the emotions of what's going on in a person, the fears, getting to sex and intimacy and things like that. That's something that builds up over time. We're not prostitutes that just take off our clothes, have sex, and go away. It's a whole process. That's why it's called surrogate partner therapies, because we are a partner. So we're creating that relationship. And Faythe and I are in a relationship at this point in time.
And so then how segueing from, okay, you met Dan, you did some preliminary work, you're getting clear about what your resistance is. And then where does Deb come in as the therapist?
Let's take a quick break.
ladies, do you want to explore your sexuality and experience true sexual healing?
The Vaginal Orgasms Masterclass teaches you and your partners how to unlock your full sexual potential and awaken the G-spot, the sacred spot, and the cervix for an unforgettable sexual experience. Would learning how to finally surrender and release grief, fear, and uncertainty benefit your outlook on life, love, and relationships? We certainly think so. Common misconceptions of the G-spot, including its anatomy and function as an erogenous zone, will be covered in this course.
Plus, we're going to teach you 7 different massage strokes for the G-spot that dissolve blocked energy and increase your pleasure tenfold.
We're going to teach you how to locate the sacred spot and the best methods to stimulate it for maximum pleasure.
And you're going to learn about cervical orgasm techniques, which are the most powerful and also often elusive style of climaxing. This class is primarily geared toward women, but men have taken it as well and learned so much about how to pleasure their partners.
So get ready for multiple O's, my friends. And you can get all of that at sexreimagine.com/female-masterclass. And for being a listener of the show, we've got a beautiful coupon code for you. It is 20% off this course. Just type in podcast20, that's all caps, podcast20, and get yourself a great deal on this on-demand course.
Okay, and I would say before I could start working with Dan, now Dan and I talked a lot by Zoom and phone, but until I could actually go and see him, part of this triad is the therapist. And that was a journey in itself. That's a whole nother podcast. And it needs to be somebody who understands this process. And I just want to say this right here, right now, and I'm going to cry. I know I'm going to cry.
Tears are always welcome.
Deb, I could not have found 2 more perfect people to walk with me through this journey. Deb and Dan have created such a safe space. And I was scared to death. And I see Deb every week. It is by Zoom, but I see her every week. I will continue to see her until I die. So I had asked Dan, before I was having a hard time finding a therapist and adding that expense to it as well. And Deb so generously provided a space for me to see her at a reduced rate. But I said to Dan, I've done a lot of therapy. I don't need a therapist. I've done a lot of therapy. Oh, yes, you need a therapist in this process. So Dan helped me find Deb, and then we could get started.
I don't actually know the history with IPSA, but it seems to me like the original intention with surrogate partner work was that it would be this triadic model where there would be a surrogate partner, a therapist, and a client. And I've heard it talked about at a conference many, many years ago. And my understanding was that the therapist is there to provide the kind of emotional support, to also act as a bridge sometimes between the surrogate partner and the client. Things as silly as I worked with a male client and a female surrogate at one point in time, and he was embarrassed to say something about the fact that he thought her breath didn't smell so great. And he was really torn up about it. He didn't want to tell her. He didn't want to hurt her feelings. So he and I processed through that. So then he could, again, say to his surrogate partner, it would be really great if you had a tic tac or something of that nature. And again, for him, it was about building relationships. So not only was it sexual, but it was also about building emotional connection, because that's a big part of this as well. Faythe didn't have that issue with Dan. Dan has good breath, apparently. And
Yes.
but that's kind of how, that's at its essence, how I work in this model.
And Deb, my understanding from just talking with you and Dan before we pressed record is that you worked with Faythe for some amount of time before you thought that Faythe was ready to begin with Dan. Is that, or did you guys decide together, you and Faythe, or how did that go?
Mostly I do it because I want to get as best a psychological understanding of where the person is as they're coming in, both as a means of kind of taking care of the client, but also taking care of Dan. I want to know that the person is pretty grounded. I want to know about sexual trauma. And again, Faythe has had a lot of counseling and has a social work background. So kind of has a pretty good understanding of the kind of traumas that anybody might experience. And so it's about getting a sense of, are they emotionally, psychologically a good fit? It's really important.
If I could say, typically, the client is already working with a therapist, a sex therapist, maybe for even a year or more. And the therapist may suggest, surrogate partner therapy might be a good thing for you. I actually came in the back door. I found Dan first, and then I had to go find a therapist. But it's usually the opposite.
Okay.
And if I could also add, Faythe, if I remember correctly, you went to a therapist or someone you were working with currently who sort of said, ew, I can't do that. I won't do that. So she was met almost immediately with sort of a
Judgment.
A cultural, societal norm about doing this work, which was kind of hands off. I won't do that. And that's not uncommon, sadly.
Yeah.
It's not uncommon.
And so what was that first appointment like with Dan?
Well, I met Dan and Deb in Deb's office. That's part of the program, just to get the norms out there. But the first time, and so I knew what was going to happen in terms of the first appointment is just talking. And so I went to his, he has a studio space. There's a sitting area with a couch, and we're sitting on the couch, and we're just talking, giving some history. And I'm going to cry again. I look across the room, and there is the bed. I look at that bed, and I thought, I can see the Emerald City. I can see the Holy Grail, and it is mine. Wow. I deserve this.
Powerful.
And
Wow.
I was scared to death. So each session just grew a little more in talking and sensate touch and just becoming comfortable with each other. And again, I just want to say that Dan created such a safe place to trust. I didn't have to worry about, does he like me? Or did I say the right thing? When you're on a date, did I say the right thing? oh, will I see him again? None of that. No, you just take that away.
That's nice to have that anxiety removed, that layer. And what a
Yeah.
beautiful thing to share. Thank you so much, Faith. That just, I feel like the vulnerability and like the hope and also like the fear and it's so exquisite and just so beautiful. And thank you for sharing that so in such a lovely way. Dan, what do you do to help someone feel safe, knowing that this is really new territory?
I know that there is a big fear there. I'm a tall male. They come in the room. I do a bunch of little things that they're not even aware of. Like I don't sit in front of the door. I give them access to an escape, whether they're conscious of it or not, or they're going to use it.
Interesting. That's
But we
cool.
go super, super slowly. It's not about, okay, let's get in and let's start taking our clothes off or anything like that. It's a process. There are 4 pillars to the surrogate partner therapy world. And the first one is building, repairing foundation. And so that is really just getting to be with the client, starting to build that relationship, starting to nurture where things are going on, telling her about the sandbox, that she's not going to screw up, that, if she says something that may be dangerous in a regular relationship, then that's something that me and Deb are going to notice. And this is why I have a conversation with Deb between sessions also. They'll say, hey, Faythe came in and, I told her about her breath being bad and she just kind of blew me off. Said, well, screw you. You're an idiot. And I would tell Deb something like that she could then work through that with her. Now, she has great breath too, so it's not a problem. But it's the ability for them to start to trust who I am as a person and that I'm not going to hurt them. A lot of women that are coming to me have deep-seated trauma, and to come at them too quickly is going to be sending them off into the woods somewhere, and they're just not going to be able to deal with it. So we go just very, very slowly. Then the next part of it is the whole body sensual connection kind of thing. And with that, what we're doing is starting to introduce an education. We're starting to introduce touch without being sexual in nature. So it's just a shoulder caress or face caress or back caress, something like that, fully clothed. And then we start getting into the more sexual aspects of things before finally the close. And so that's what I do with her and all my clients is just go very, very slowly, learn who they are. I mean, we're building a relationship. It's like going on a date. What do you like in life? What do I like in life? Who are you as a being? And get to understand them from a really deep perspective.
Now, I think I recall from our last interview with you, Dan, that especially in the work that you do with women, a lot of them being older virgins, that there's oftentimes a religious theme, almost sometimes religious trauma. And I'm curious both to hear from Deb and Faythe, what was it in your past that prevented you from having this sort of sexual maturation process that many people go through culturally, right? As they meet people and they date and they kiss and they get married and they have kids and this whole thing that is typical of people's journey. What happened on your journey, if anything, that stopped those sexual initiations from happening for you?
Well, there's another whole podcast. So as I said, I grew up in a very conservative family, church, and then our society. And that carried over into my adult life. I was in the church for a number of years. But the message was, you do things within a box. And that is, you don't have sex before marriage. And it's in a certain way if you do get married. I would say for myself, and I don't want to go too far into this, is the male role models in my life were not ones that made me feel confident as a woman. Mm-hmm. And so I felt like, every guy is going to see me the way these role models see me. And that never really got worked through, I think.
And how was that? What was the feeling for you of the way that they were perceiving you?
That I was fat and ugly and not attractive to men. Although I think I was, because when I got to college, all these guys were asking me out, and I thought, how is this happening? Don't they know these guys know. So,
Interesting.
yeah. So it was a double
Do you
message.
feel like you've healed that old messaging and that old?
And that, one of the things I would talk about is what did I learn about myself, and what were my goals actually, and one of my goals was to heal that cultural, societal, familial, and it has started. I will say it has started through a lot of tears, through a lot of laughter, through more tears. So yeah, I think it has started.
I love the sexual awakening for everyone, no matter where they start or where they're at on the journey. It's coming into self-acceptance and self-love for who you are as a human being. It's really beautiful.
And I would say, and Deb, you can speak to this. Deb has helped me make that box so much bigger in how I see the world and expand my view of what is sexuality? What's okay? What's not okay? As I said, I come from a conservative family, and I still have conservative members of that family who don't know any of this, none of this. So I don't know, Deb, if you want to speak to any of that.
Well, I think really it's been the relationship between Faythe and I. As you could tell from the beginning with Faythe, when you started talking, she has this very passionate seeker inside of her. And sort of like she stepped outside that box, and then it was like a child with wide eyes about what's this and what's that and who am I in relationship to that, and oh, could I do that? And then if she had an idea about something she wanted to do, she was researching. She's an amazing researcher. And then she would have the courage to bring it to Dan or to me, or to talk about her curiosity about it. And as she began to feel safer and safer and safer with Dan, all of the possibilities and the options came up as something you could speak to, Faythe. So it was, you took the first step out of the box. And then for sure, like a child who's just in wonder about the world and what's out there. Faythe and I were talking yesterday about this she is a little bit in kind of an adolescent phase right now. As a 71-year-old, she's sort of like, okay, where can I go? Who can I do it with? What can I do? I love it. I have said at different times in my career that sometimes I think sex is wasted on the young, because if we all had that kind of bright, shiny energy about all the possibilities of what we could do, we may all be still having adolescent sex, even as older people, but
take that curiosity all the way to the grave.
Yeah. With a lot more maturity, a lot more maturity and willingness and understanding of our own self-boundaries.
And I think confidence too. So I'm curious, Faythe, just based on something Deb just said, are you currently dating other people, or where are you at on that?
Not at the moment, but there are possibilities. Okay. I this last year, we're in January, I did do 3 online dating sites. It was pretty abysmal, I have to say. So that didn't work out so well. And as Deb said, for me, I want to meet someone organically. We all do, I suppose. And so that's what I'm hoping for. Yeah.
And so I'm curious, both Dan and Deb, like as you are walking with someone on this journey, what's your pace like? Are you just following their pace? Or are you nudging them a little bit further along? What's that sort of line between having them lead themselves versus you leading them? I imagine it's kind of a mix.
Do you want to go, Deb, or me?
Well, I could just say that one of the things when we were talking about Dan's ability to build safety, one of the ways that I think he built a lot of safety for Faythe was she was a bit jonesing for the bed, as you heard, the Holy Grail, the Emerald City.
Yeah.
And Dan's container was sort of, no, we're not going there yet. No, we're not ready yet. So I believe that built so much trust for Faythe that he, with grace and kindness, was going to hold this really beautiful boundary, that he was not going to let Faythe sort of blow through it. So in that way, I think maybe we both worked at learning how to build trust in Dan and the curriculum, the SPT curriculum, and that it is structured for a reason. And really that even as much as Faythe wanted to beeline for the bed, that wasn't going to happen. Like all these other pieces were really important. So
Wow, I can really see.
it was kind of the opposite of what you're talking about, Leah.
Yeah, I could just see how much faith that would put into the experience.
Yeah.
So Dan, are you following a protocol curriculum? How do you kind of create this experience?
Yeah, there's a very structured process that we follow as surrogates, and we're all, well, let me rephrase that. There are a number of people who are taught through the IPSA model, and there's a lot of people that are borrowing from that to bring other surrogates into the world.
Tell us
But
what IPSA is real quick.
IPSA is the International Professional Surrogates Association, and you can find that at ipsa.us, the short, easy way. But they have a process that was designed back in the 70s with Masters and Johnson. And if you watch the Masters and Johnson show on HBO or whatever it was, they brought surrogates in there, but they weren't portrayed in that show like it is factual. In fact, what actually has happened is there's a very structured process that we go through. The client, myself, and the therapist are all looking at what are the next steps. So Faythe wanted to just jump to the bed right at the very beginning. We're like, no, we're going to structure it this way. I talk with Deb and say, okay, Deb, we've done this. The next step is this. Do you think that we're prepared to move forward? And then, of course, we talk to Faythe about that too, because she could always say, no, I'm not there yet. And of course, that usually comes up when we're getting closer to more sexual intimacy or things like that. And then later on in the process, when we've actually gone through all of the real steps that are there, then it's kind of my prerogative to throw things out. So Faythe would come to me and say, hey, I was thinking about this, or this, or I'm asking her to think about different things to try, things that she may have seen on a movie or talked with some friends about, or even talked with Deb about. It's like, bring it up, ask me to try this. Or I would present some things to her and say, hey, have you ever watched porn before? Oh my God, no. Well, let's watch some porn and just see what's there. And so we try it. And, and it's a sandbox. So if we try something and it doesn't work, we slough it off and move on to the next thing.
I would say that in the movie, Emma Thompson had a list that she wanted to accomplish of about 4 or 5 things. I had about 25 to 30 things. So I had a list.
How's your list? Are you getting them checked out?
Yeah, I am. I have.
Yeah, I was going to say, are you comfortable with sharing what some of those items are on the list?
Well, I would say just as in terms of my goals that I had, one was, as we just talked about, moving past the societal, cultural norms that we have. I wanted, first of all, to have sexual experiences. I wanted to know the basics of lovemaking. I wanted to learn how to be more vulnerable and to have confidence in intimacy, in being intimate with a man, because I never had been. Here was a big one. I wanted to know what my body was capable of erotically. I wanted to know, and now I know. And so that's a wonderful thing.
That's a huge
wonderful
win.
thing. Yeah.
Now, how has that changed your confidence, like in other areas of your life?
I think that the big word for me is pleasure. And that's why one reason I'm doing this podcast, I want people to know, and particularly maybe older women, you can have pleasure and you can have confidence in your body. At the end of I just have to read this. At the end of the Leo Grand movie, Emma Thompson's character is speaking and she says, it's a very powerful thing, sexual fulfillment. It makes you feel invincible. I have felt more alive and more powerful in this last month, for me a year and a half, than I can ever remember. Pleasure is a wonderful thing, something we should all have. And so I think it's given me a confidence to go out there and tell people, this may not be the way you do it, but find some pleasure in your life, some way to have pleasure. So, my list, you talk about my list. I have it right here. I could read it, but anyway, it's all the sexual things, I'll just say this, just taking a shower together. I said, I want to do that. And the thing is, I did not want to enter this with people saying, oh, isn't this sweet? Here's an old woman who wants to have sex. I didn't want that to happen. And I didn't want to be an anomaly. I did not want to be an anomaly. And most of the things on my list, most people have experienced, but I hadn't. So I wanted to be normal. I felt normal.
I would argue with you. There are some things on your list that many women have not obtained.
Really?
Multiple orgasms, full body orgasms.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I feel special.
Many women have not had that experience.
Yeah.
All ages.
And this is one of the things that I was talking to her about too, is that as she moves forward, she's going to have more knowledge about her body and sexuality than probably most men, even at her age.
Right.
Because she just understands it more. I'm teaching her about the science behind it, what's going on. We're trying to experiencing different things. And there's a lot of people out there that just haven't and just don't know what's going on. Faythe knows that. Actually, I have another former client of Deb and mine that she is doing some chemo stuff right now. And she told me that her doctors were super impressed by how much she is aware of her body.
Wow.
And most clients aren't.
Yeah. So there's like another place where it rolls into different sectors of our life, different sectors of our health, being connected to our body in a sensual way. As all of you have been speaking, I keep on having this thought arise, which is, man, what would our sexual lives look like if we worked with a surrogate and a therapist when we're coming of age
From
sexually,
the get-go.
to get all this beautiful and more accurate information about boundaries, about consent, about desire, permission, safety, exploration, shame-free conversations about desire and what we're maybe didn't know to look at and now we can. I mean, I just think about the sex life.
I know. The different sexual journey.
Education.
That's what happened to me the first time I was at a presentation of surrogate partner work. The first thing I thought was, I wish that had been my experience.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
Instead, we have these first experiences that then we have to undo to find our own truth instead of starting in this really beautiful place.
Yeah.
And that's why I said I wanted my first experience to be with someone who knew what they were doing, to learn it all the right way and not fumble and grope and whatever. Just slowly learn it the right way.
Yeah. So Dan, I'm curious how you're kind of guiding Faythe or coaching her or, helping her and supporting her in going out into a sea where there's a lot of people who are not well educated. Like she's going to be the one educating them most likely. So how are you supporting her in that way?
I'm really not. I think that's more Deb than me. I mean, I certainly talk about different things, and this was one of the funny things that came up about it because she started getting through online dating. Well, I have no experience with that, so I started saying, "Oh, well, you should try this." She goes, "Well, I did that, and it didn't work." Oh, well, then you should try this. Yeah, I tried that too. That didn't work either. It's like, well, don't ask me. I've never done that before, so I don't really know anything about it, but. I talk about my experiences. I'm trying to share everything that I can with her. And, if she presents something to me, I'll say, this is my response to that. Here's how I would respond to that. And you are going to have to educate the guys that you're going to be with. They aren't going to know. One of the biggest things I think is asking for what she wants. She has gotten so good. We were originally going to terminate such a bad word, but we were going to complete our work together probably about 6 months ago. And I said, okay, well, here's what it looks like. We've got a closing session that we do that's fully clothed and we're just going to have conversations. And she said, okay, she wasn't happy. And she came back the next week and said, no, I want something more. I want this, and this to be accomplished before we're completed. Like, oh, we'll talk to Deb about that. And as long as she's okay with it, then let's move forward with it. And we did. But Deb, I think, is the one who's going to be helping her to move forward in real relationships.
Not surrogate. Yeah.
Yeah. So Faith, I'm curious, like, because I think one of the things that certainly arised for you in the beginning of this is attachment and not wanting to have a broken heart by the end of this experience. So how has the journey of attachment and then falling in love and holding all of this sort of gently been like for you? Because I imagine that would be a really difficult part of the journey for many people.
Knowing that it's going to end.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Right. So I'm in the heartbreak stage right now.
Mm.
Just putting that out there. We are ending actually next week, and Deb is helping me with that. So from the very beginning, before I even met, or even from the first time I met with Dan, I said, I'm not sure I want to do this because I don't want to hurt when it's over. And what he said to me was, every relationship ends. Every relationship ends one way or the other. So it's not forever. So I had to, pull up my courage, pull up my vulnerability and say, I'm going to do this anyway, even though I know it's going to hurt. And as Deb has so beautifully helped me and continues to help me through this, is seeing it. Do I have any regrets? None. I don't. Even though I know would be pain, and there is, and there's sadness, look what I've learned. Look what I've learned about myself. In fact, I was just making a list of it. I am worthy. Pleasure is my birthright. I deserve this. I deserve pleasure. Look, all I would have missed. So yes, there's sadness and pain, but it's been a huge, huge learning experience. And I don't think I'd have it any other way.
That's
would do it again. I would do it again.
Oh, it's so inspiring, Faith, especially for anyone going through any heartbreak right now, because there's so much to be gleaned from those deeper times where we're looking at the challenge.
Well, and another thing that's in there is that we actually model a great breakup, right? We don't hate each other. We're not at odds with each other. We're not shooting barbs at each other.
Amicable.
For me, my ethics say that I can have no contact with her for 6 months after our terminating session. That doesn't mean that we can't be friends in the future. And in fact, I'm friends with some of my clients, former clients from years ago. So it's not completely over. And, now she has a way. It's like, look, this just isn't working in a future relationship, or we're moving off in different directions, which is really what's happening here. Now Faythe is ready to launch. She's ready to go off on her own and teaching her to fish. I'm not just giving her fish and giving her experience. I'm teaching her how she can be out there getting her own relationships on her own.
Yeah, so beautiful. So I want to be aware of our time frame today. And I just want to ask Faythe if there's any final words of wisdom that you would leave anyone out there, male, female, anyone in between, who's looking for education and a sexual experience with somebody who really knows how to hold and knows what they're doing.
Well, I would recommend it to anyone who has either little or no sexual experience, or has had sexual trauma, who has pain with sex. Fortunately, I did not have that. To seek this out. Not only have I learned a lot, but it's been playful. I've had so much fun this last year and a half. So much fun. And so, I just would recommend it to anybody. I said to a group recently that I was telling my story to, that because the safe space was created so beautifully, both with Deb and with Dan, that I not only found parts of myself, I found myself. And I found that space where there's no encumbrances, there's no doubts, there's no fear, there's just total peace, total bliss. And I just hope people can find that. I hope they can, in whatever way. It doesn't have to be this way, whatever way. I don't know. That's my sermon.
Beautiful. I love it. And Dan and Deb, can you tell us how people can find you?
You want to go first, Deb?
Sure. I'm Googleable. You can just Google my
Google that.
name, and I've been a sex therapist for 20 plus years, and I welcome anyone who's interested in this.
So
to
Deb
just-
Azorski, Azorski.
Yeah. And we'll have
my
your
website is
and
Couples
stuff.
Therapist Boulder, but you can just use my name and you can find me.
Yeah. We'll have some links in the show notes too.
And then to find me, I'm at pleasureengineering.com. Or you can find me indirectly through IPSA. So IPSA.us, the International Professional Surrogates Association, for people who are interested in surrogate partner therapy. And it works with cisgender, heterosexual women, men, gay, trans, all that. We have therapists that are there to support that. So go to them and they have a person that you could talk to, a referral agent, if you will, that will talk to you and find out what it is you're looking for and match you with a surrogate and potentially a therapist if you don't have one already as well.
Yeah, if I can just, close it with just one final question with Faythe, and that is, what do you know now that you wish you would have known that you could share with someone today as you embarked on this journey in the beginning?
You mean, what do I know about the process or about myself?
Just like, it's more just like, what do you think their heart needs to know? Where do you think that they're like that place that kind of puts us in a stop mode? What is one thing that you could say, being in this position, being able to like look back and go, I wish I would have known that in the beginning of my journey? Is there anything?
Couple things. I didn't expect this process to be so life-changing. I was not anticipating that. And I look at things pretty carefully, but I wasn't expecting that. I think the other thing is what I said before, that pleasure is our birthright. And pleasure is such a negative word in a lot of spheres. When I was growing up, we didn't hear about that. But pleasure is our birthright. We deserve that. And when I turned 70, I said, this is the decade of pleasure, not the year of pleasure. It is the decade of pleasure. And I know in the Bible it says we are put on this earth to toil. And I said, no more toiling. No more toiling. This is about pleasure.
Well, that's what we should call this episode.
Pleasure
is your birthright, everybody.
Yes.
And it brings us a sense of aliveness. So may your day be pleasure-filled for all of our listeners and for each of our sexperts today. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
you
you
bet. All right, you can get more on the show notes and be sure to tune in for The Dish, where Dr. Willow and I will hash it all out. Love, 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 love.
Now, our favorite part, the dish.
It's dish time, and we are talking about surrogate partner therapy. We were so
Dishalicious.
honored.
Oh my
Yes,
God.
to have these people on.
I love talking with Dan. I think it's like one of the most fascinating things. Like, there's definitely a part of me that's like, I want to become a surrogate partner therapist. I feel like you and I kind of already do that to some degree. I mean, when I work with a client long term, maybe it's not the same model exactly, but you work with a client for over a year, and it's like you have a relationship with that person. It's so powerful. It's so powerful. Or even, 3 months, 4 months, long periods of time. It's amazing when you dive deep with one sexpert in the world, one who does hands-on and therapy or coaching at the same time. I think that you can really dig into your own sexual awakening and exploration in such a profound way.
Yeah, it was really great to have both the therapist and the client on this episode, unlike our first episode learning about surrogate partner therapy with Dan.
Mm-hmm.
And I really encourage people to go back to episode 35 and listen to that because it's fascinating. And we really got into some more intricate areas of the process. And especially like understanding the difference between that and sex surrogacy, which is different.
Mm-hmm.
And just like the full range of like what's on the menu. What I really thought was awesome about this part of the story is being able to hear more about the therapist role, and then hearing from Faythe, someone who's actually been through the journey. And I was just tickled when she talked about like, what was it, like the Emerald Road or the, the bed, and like she could see the
chalice.
Yes. And to just feel, you can feel energetically the awakening of someone who's coming alive. And her message about pleasure really touched me, because as I keep experiencing new levels of pleasure in my own life, what keeps coming to me is like this really beautiful experience of feeling alive. I think sometimes we just go through the monotony of life, day in and day out, making food and go doing errands and going to your job and kind of having the same conversations with people, throughout the day and day out. And then to kind of step into sexual aliveness, to have experiences, even with like a good meal or a great glass of wine, and really being in the present moment of the pleasure that it's providing you. There is something connected to like the fullness of gratitude arises. I mean, just last night, Matt and I it's cold, right? And we slip into the hot tub, and you can't help but go, fuck, I am so grateful for this hot water right now. And it's so pleasurable and it's so pleasing. And it just brings gratitude right to the surface. It brings aliveness right to the surface. So I keep on being struck with that sensation and that life experience, and how beautiful it is to be a human being, to have those experiences of pleasure that give us that gift.
Yeah, pleasure is really a pathway to who you're becoming. I feel like what I witness people do when they're in the throes of rapture, they're in the throes of sexual ecstasy, or they're in the moment of stepping into something they've never experienced before. I think it's like we're pioneering ourselves into new landscapes of what's possible for our bodies, and new neural pathways are being laid down between the brain, the heart, the gut, and the genitals in that moment. And so it's like we become somebody more. We become more of ourselves. And in that process, we let go of the pieces of ourselves that are stuck in those monotony ways. It's like we have to release those parts that are, the complainer and the victim, and those pieces, so that we can actually transcend and step into more and more pleasure. If we're going to increase our capacity for pleasure, and we're going to open up our body and our lives to experience more than we ever even knew was possible, more than we ever could have imagined, then we have to let these old parts of us go. We have to let them die.
And we have to be proactive. We can wait around and wait for pleasure to bestow its gifts on us, or we can say, I'm going to seek pleasure. I'm going to have a healthy relationship to pleasure. I'm going to make pleasure a vital nutrient in my day-to-day life, because
I love that.
I do too. I mean, and studies show now a vital nutrient. Because studies show that it increases our longevity. It helps us live longer. It's good for our immune system. Yeah. It's good for our outlook
sleep,
on life.
Our heart rate,
our heart health
increases. Yeah,
our sleep. We get better sleep. All around better health and well-being. And I think even just perspective and outlook on life, our attitude is improved when we are, pleasure positive. And it's sad to me, just hearing, Faythe talk about, and I think this was also true of my childhood and sort of a religious fundamental culture, was pleasure was seen as bad and something to be guilty over. And so, and it was selfish. And, it was much, you were a much better person if you sacrificed your pleasure for others. If you struggled, suffering. So to have her say, I'm ending toiling.
Yeah, I love that. That was great. No more toiling. Yes. Pleasure. This is the decade of pleasure. She claimed that. I'm claiming that too.
That's right. She's like, it's not just the year of pleasure. This is the decade of pleasure. And I just, I'm in the stands cheering her on and cheering all of us on to have decades upon decades of glorious pleasure. And and to hold it with, a sense of healthiness, because I think some people, the shadow side of everything, right, is we can take something like pleasure and we can abuse it to the degree that it becomes where we hide, and it becomes a place where we actually are more numb than we are alive. And so like knowing how to hold, all of this in a healthy way, I think is what the partner surrogate therapy is really providing. It's giving this a structure, and just to echo what was already said on the episode about, wow, what would sex be like if we were all given a better education? If there was, I think what's cool about this is, sure, you could just hire somebody to kind of initiate you sexually, but the fact that there's a therapist involved, I think helps keep everybody healthy. Not just safe, but healthy,
Yeah, it's definitely a more holistic approach to working with a sexual therapist. I always love it when I have like long-term clients that I'm working with hands-on who have a therapist as well. I actually just started working with somebody who I am now in contact with the therapist as well. Great. So that feels really, it feels so holistic, and it's reminiscent of, the way that I've always worked. Like I'll work with one person doing acupuncture and Chinese medicine, but I'll be talking with their MD, at the same time. And so I just think that we can support individuals so much more holistically when we are in conversation with other people other professionals who are supporting them as well.
Which is why it's sort of a shame that there are so many therapists out there still who would frown upon this kind of therapeutic approof, right?
I know. That was an interesting piece of this conversation where she mentioned, I had a therapist, but they kind of like, poo-pooed the idea, or it just went, like through their own judgment. Obviously, that person needs a little bit of therapy around sexuality on their own,
So, well, this was fun, and I think we did a great job with having so many people on the line.
5 people,
and managing
one podcast.
That was great.
We did good, yeah.
Yeah, I think we're getting better at this. All right, y'all. Have a fantastic day.
Ciao.
And
much
may
love.
Your day be filled with outrageous pleasure.
Thanks for tuning in. This episode was hosted by Tantric Sex Master Coach and Positive Psychology Facilitator Leah Piper, as well as by Chinese and Functional Medicine Doctor and Taoist Sexology Teacher Dr. Willow Brown. Don't forget, your comments, likes, subscribes, and suggestions matter. Let's realize this new world together.